Okay. Hi, Dr. Banks. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Excellent. It's so delightful to have you here. This small tete-a-tete, and it's like having an espresso shot whenever I meet Dr. Banks because you get the right dose of positive energy, and I'm so excited to hear more from you.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, I wanted to present something about Dr. Banks. So, Dr. Banks, I give two words to her: powerhouse woman. And that's a true description of this wonderful woman that I met who has played several roles as a mom, as a grandmother, as a daughter. And as you can see that she is a fitness enthusiast and she's been busy giving so many meetings these days with the COVID, talking about the vaccines, the protocols. And I'm sure she must be having the hoarseness of voice by now talking to the great leaders around. About Dr. Banks, she's an infectious disease specialist, currently working with Northeast Ohio Infectious Disease Group in Ohio. She graduated from Case Western Reserve, where she did her med school, and then followed by Cleveland Clinic, where she did her internship, and University Hospitals in Cleveland, where she did her residency and fellowship in 1979. And you did all this when I was not even born.
I know, right? You I'm not even watching Sesame Street.
And I had to just take a snapshot of your awards and titles and all your accomplishments because actually I need another session to have all of them together. And some of the recognizable ones, as you can see, and she's been the recipient of the 2019 Watanucon Clinician of the Year Award, and dive into some of the questions which I have for Dr. Banks today. So, first of all, I have to ask you've been so busy giving all these Zoom meetings everywhere around, and we all have these 24 hours in a day. How do you manage all of these meetings in the same 24 hours, which we all have?
Well, I think it might be a little different for me right now at this particular time because my children are all up and out. I remember in those days when I was raising my four children, I had so many activities for them after school that I was taking them
Uh-huh.
to that I probably wouldn't be able to do as many Zooms right now and have the time that I have had I had little children. But, I've always believed in being busy.
But Dr. Banks, I see like even a lot of people in your place, and with the pandemic hitting us so badly, we've been so busy. But you're still working as a full-time busy infectious disease specialist. On top of that, you do all these things around. So do you make a conscious decision that I have to do it, no matter what is going in my life, I'm going to do it?
That is absolutely right. That's kind of been my modus operandi through my entire career. It might have had something, and maybe we'll touch on that a little earlier, that, women in medicine, we were sort of early on expected to do it all. And I guess that sort of never left me. I always felt, especially working as a physician and now as an infectious disease doctor, and because we're now so busy, but I always have felt that I needed to share my load.
Hmm.
I always felt that I didn't want, the term dump. You don't want to dump on anybody.
Yeah.
But I also knew that and know that I have another life other than medicine.
Yes.
And so, yes, the answer to that question is yes. I make a conscious decision to do all these things. I don't know that I do them well, but yes, I do make a conscious decision to do all of these things.
That's really interesting because a lot of us, when we face the adversities, we go into our cocoon and we really don't want to come out of our comfort zone. But I have seen you. I have seen you every day, and especially this last 1 year, which has been so critical for all of us. You're not shy to take the challenges. So that brings to my next question: that how do you overcome this hesitancy? When you have to pick up a new job, a new challenge, how do you overcome that threshold?
Well, it's interesting. My daughter, particularly, who's a physician, has had some ups and downs, and the boys, maybe not so much me counseling them, but certainly my daughter. And my motto is I'll allow you to have a pity party for about 24 to 48 hours. And then after you have a pity party, then you have to pick it up. And as I say, keep it moving. I don't allow myself to wallow in the mire of being depressed. I mean, certainly we all encounter those things in our lives that could lead us, spiral us into deep depression. And not that not that something might come my way that might cause that, but I guess I just try not to focus on the negative. And I really do believe that, when God closes one door, he opens up about four or five more for you. And I've found that really to be the case with me and my career. So 48-hour pity party, and then we have to wipe the tears away and keep it moving.
I think that will be our message written on the top today. And,
Yeah.
and absolutely, I think when you have nothing more to lose, why not just keep trying? Like, you already deep down there in your trouble. So message learned, keep going. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined the practice that I was with you, I lost my job at UPMC and had worked there for a number of years, and really was at a point where I could have retired. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not financially, but
Mm-hmm.
mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I saw that I had maybe a 24 to 48-hour pity party, and then decided that I still had a lot to offer in infectious diseases and a lot of mentoring to do. So when, I joined you guys, it was also another opportunity to be with young people. I've always liked to be with young people, and that
Also was the pleasure
inspires me
for us.
too. That inspires me.
So I really want to know, what's your daily routine like?
So my daily routine is a lot of people want to know, well, when do I sleep? So so my daily routine really, I'll go to sleep maybe at I have this thing about trying to stay up and watch television, but that never really works. I was trying to watch some of the new doctor shows again after
Uh-huh.
watching some of the doctor shows back in the 80s. But I'll go to sleep around 10ish. But then I'll wake up in the morning at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll read my emails, and it's also an opportunity of quiet time. Not that I have anybody here, but it's an opportunity for me to catch up on some articles, catch up on some of
Mhm.
my reading, catch up on my social media. And then I'll get myself together, and then, strike out around 9:30ish or 10 or so and get to the hospital. I find that I don't want to get in infectious diseases. People are like, well, why don't you get to work at 7:30? Well, if you get to work at 7:30 and you finish at 2, you'll just have to come back to the hospital, because the doctors don't come in and start giving their consults
Mhm.
really until after 9:30 or 10. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah.
you work later on the other end, because if you come in early in the morning, the consults really aren't going to start coming. And then in the evening, because I'm involved in so many other
Yes.
activities, I my Zooms start, which is a little different than the way it used to be, because I used to have to travel for a lot of these meetings. I was involved. I'm on the alumni board for the medical school at Case
Mhm.
Western Reserve. I'm on two boards at the Art Museum in Cleveland. And so I would have to travel a lot for these meetings. But I don't have to do that so much now. And maybe I find that I can put more in my agenda because I can do more Zooms.
So that kind of time slot that you got for yourself, and especially at that time when nobody else is disturbing you, I think it's a very productive time slot that you took out, and that's why I can see you well updated with everything. And I don't know that I should have brought into the introduction, whether it be politics, whether it be art, museum, travel. Dr. Banks knows it all. And that now I know when she works this. So you started your career, Dr. Banks, very early when there were not even enough women in medical field, let it alone be for infectious disease as a specialty. And how were things for you at that time? What things can you learn, and what would you tell to the women out there who want to enter the medical field?
So you're right. When I started medical school in the early 70s at Case Western Reserve, which really prided itself on having this being this role model of social responsibility, and
Mhm.
they early on were into diversity and inclusion, but it was really a study in quotas. So in my class of 110, there were 10 women, 10 African Americans. I can't say that it was that challenging. Again, because I kind of knew what the lay of the land was before I went to medical school. I mean, I knew that there were not a lot of women in medical school, and I was just happy to be accepted at Case Western Reserve, mainly because of their historical, the curricula that they had and their
Mhm,
history, like I said, of social.
mhm,
Dr. Spot taught there.
mhm,
Um, Lessons learned. I think I wasn't necessarily a person who banded with the women kind of person. I probably had more interactions with my male colleagues than my female
mhm,
colleagues. Not that I wasn't, with my female colleagues, but I just sort of found that that's where I sort of settled out. In terms of lessons learned, there are way more many of you guys now in medical school and
mhm,
in training. And I'm still in awe of, women back in my day. I got pregnant with my first child, and I was a third year resident, and I was the only second female resident that had
mhm,
ever gotten pregnant
mhm,
in the residency program, and it was tough because I think that part was maybe tougher than even being a resident by myself
mhm.
on the floors because instead of congratulating you about being pregnant, all you heard was, well, who's going to take your call? Who's going to cover for you? You're going to
Yeah.
be out for how long and who's going to cover for you? So it was sort of sad in that respect, but I'm really happy to see that you guys now there's power in numbers. There were a lot of things that we put up with. We didn't have call rooms. We had to sleep sometimes. I remember in the emergency room, we slept in the same room with the
Wow.
guys because we just wanted to get to sleep. And we were like, well, if you don't like it, then you need to leave. So there were not a lot of accommodations. And I know when my daughter um, taking her her internal medicine boards, I was shocked to find out that you're given time to breastfeed and do all these things, and I'm like, oh my God, nobody would even discuss that. So women have come a long way. There's still, there's still gaps in terms of, for example, women being chairpersons of departments and those things. So we still have some gaps, but I think there's a lot more power in numbers because you guys have been able to demand more things than we ever could.
And I think it all came because of people ahead of us that have already contributed, people like you, irrespective of the oppression, I would say, or the fear you face, you didn't stop, you didn't give up. And, because of that, what you have done, I think a lot of us are able to, walk in that pavement. I would ask you, who was your inspiration at that time? Like, I'm sure you were going out to somebody, your constant source of inspiration or your ideal.
Am my mother's daughter. My
Uh,
mother was my role model. My mother was a visionary. My mother was a mathematician, a math teacher, and we lived in the South in North Carolina. And first of all, she was very politically active in addition to
mhm,
teaching as a mathematician in high school. And then she went on to college. So I saw that political activism when I was growing up. She was always running for office and doing something like that. She had a passion for the arts and music. As children, we were made to sit every Sunday or every Saturday and listen to opera, whether we wanted to listen to it or not. And I look back on all these things that she had us to do. Everybody had to play the piano. Well, I had a sister, but we both had to play the piano and another instrument. So she introduced us to things in the South when it was a little more difficult to do
mhm,
some of these things. But because of the vision that she had of where she wanted us to be ultimately, she knew that we needed to do these things now to compete on a global spectrum. And we're talking in the 50s. One of the things that my mom did that was heresy in 1958. I was, you know, can't tell my age, but
it is
I was
just a number.
relatively young, and my sister was young, and my mom got a scholarship to go study math at the University of Chicago
Uh-huh.
for a year. And I mean, that was and to leave your family and your husband. And my father wasn't very happy, but my mom said, I need to do this for my career, and I'll get you a nanny. And she did. And she left for a year, and there was not any of this flying back and forth like we do now. She came home at Christmas and she came home at the end of the year, and we're all the better for it. She certainly,
Mhm.
because of that year at University of Chicago, it catapulted her into getting so many more job opportunities than she would have gotten if she had just stayed as just a college professor. So my mom.
Your mom. Yeah. And that's so wonderful to hear, first of all, that how your mom raised you and all, but also at that time, what she was targeting into doing certain things was not a usual curriculum. Like she was going out of her ways to do that. And I'm sure that has culminated in you. When I see you trying to do those difficult things, I can totally see that it has resolved generations after generations. So, lesson learned, try something difficult, even though it's hard, you should give it a try.
Yeah, we become sometimes too complacent with the easy, and can get into a rut. And I don't know if you know, right now, speaking of type A personalities, for the first semester I took a course at YSU on Zoom in the human microbiome, and this semester I'm taking a course on cell cell biology, the stem cell at YSU. And I got an MBA. So I love learning. I love learning, and I just sort of feel that the time that I have on this earth, why waste it with not learning something new? So that's just, you know, type A, I guess.
Or you just decide, okay, this is something I like, let's just do it. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, it's fine, but let's just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just jump in and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I'd like to try, especially when I, went to do my MBA,
Hmm.
because that was a major commitment. That was
Yes.
every weekend for 18 months while I was still working full time here in Youngstown. And, MBA school in and of itself, just without having a job, is difficult. But, I had a lot of help. Was married at the time, and my husband certainly helped out with the children.
Hmm.
And I had babysitters to come in, so that helped. But I just decided that if there's some adversity, then you have to try to overcome it as best you can. If it's something that you really want to do,
Social media, a boon or a bane?
I think it depends on how you use it. It can be the bane of your existence, and if you let it. Now, I'm a frequent visitor to social media, to
Yes, I
Facebook.
love to see those.
I use it to my own advantage. I don't, I try not to engage in the pettiness sometimes that goes on. The things that I try to post are things that I feel are going to be helpful for people. For example, I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of newspapers during the day on my cell phone, and try to get news articles out there that people might not be reading, or medical journals that come through my phone to try to get out there, because I believe that knowledge is power. So to that extent, it's for me a benefit. I just when it becomes all encompassing, and then you start deteriorating into what he said, she said,
Hmm.
and gossiping and all
Hmm.
that kind of thing, then I think it's not a good thing. But I find have made some really good friends on Facebook, and have found some friends from my childhood that I lost. So, that's been very good, but it can be addicting. So sometimes you might want to sit back and relax and take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm not going to do Facebook this week, and, focus on something else. Maybe
One
read.
of my friends, especially during this times of, I would say, difficult political times, difficult times of pandemic and the racism and all surrounding that, a lot of people want to express their views, but they're afraid of the judgment that follows with that. You go through the comments and there are some harsh comments, or even I would say they're not able to reason with what is going on. And it's not like a private conversation. You can understand the tone of a person. So do you
Right.
go into sometimes that, or you just
Yeah,
ignore it?
sometimes I find myself getting into some of those conversations, but then when I see how, first of all, I don't think that I really don't believe on those that you're going to change anybody's opinion. You might help them see things differently. And if I can do that to a certain extent, but on a 1-to-1, 3 or 4 minute exchange on Facebook, I'm probably not going to have any major impact on anybody.
Mm.
And then sometimes I will say things controversial, but I will always start out by saying, I know I'm going to be hooted down.
Yeah.
And so that opens it up for, if someone feels that they want to express their opinion that's different from mine, it gives them an opportunity to do it. And fortunately, I don't have friends that I have found that make me unfriend. Well, maybe some, but even during our past political situation, many times I have agreed to disagree, and that's what I find that I do a lot of times with my friends: agree to disagree.
Yeah. But thank you for doing that, because I think on a day-to-day basis, we are so busy with the work, we really don't sit down to have a conversation of like this. And because you were involved even with the FDA infective committee and all those meetings, we were getting information from you right firsthand, and it was
Right.
fresh out of the press, and that was really helpful. So as you said, you can take it, and if you don't like, then it's up to you, but you cannot
Yeah.
change the decorum.
Exactly. In a 1 or 2 minute exchange, I'm not going to change your opinion, but I will give you information for you to look at and form your own opinion.
Again, going on a little bit of a serious topic, is like you're being proactive on issues that involves even systemic racism. And apart from discussing and spreading the awareness, which is obviously equally important, can you think of one or two things that the society really needs to change? Like, or there's some of the immediate steps, whether it be healthcare or any place you think of.
Because I'm a physician and because I deal with healthcare disparities more than anything else, I mean, there are a lot of other, issues that are out there, like I mentioned, with women trying to get more women in positions of power in college, medical, I mean, not just medical school, but colleges and universities and so forth. But in terms of healthcare, it's been something that certainly when I started off early in medical school, and when I went on to what was called the wards,
Hmm.
in my training. The wards meant that you had no private rooms where I worked. It was all like a city hospital. And, there were glaring instances of racism that happened during those times. But what I did was, rather, you have to pick your battles. And rather than, run around screaming every day about something that I saw that was a disparity or racist or whatever you want to call it, I put it in the back of my head and decided and vowed that when I got into a position of power,
Mm.
those things would
Right,
not be
right,
the same and that I
right.
would change those things. For example, one example was the way that sometimes African American women were treated when they came into the
Mhm.
emergency room back in those days. The diagnosis was more pelvic inflammatory disease than appendicitis or an ectopic
Mhm.
pregnancy. And sometimes diagnoses were missed because of stereotypes, and you put all those things in the back of your head and you go, when I get into a position of power, it'll change. I won't call an elderly woman by her first name. It'll
Mhm.
be Miss or Mrs. I will give her
Mhm.
that kind of respect. Over the years, so what do we need to do now? We're in we're in different times. And we hear a lot about structural racism, especially when it comes to diseases, and define what it is, those things that we consider structural racism, because people throw terms around and we're not all on the same page with what we mean. And if it means that some people are getting better care than other people, then maybe we should just start with that and accept that. I do feel, however, that legislation is important. I grew up during the civil rights era in the South. And although I would like to think that people's minds and opinions change because they change, the change might come fast enough to affect change. And so by that I mean I think more legislation needs to happen in this country to make sure that people of color get health care. And you can only do that through, passing laws and funding to
Yes.
organizations and to places. So it has to start from a federal level and then trickle down. You're not going to change anybody's opinion, but you may affect some change by that.
Absolutely. I think changing people's behavior take generations, but I think immediately to put something on immediate effect, I think federal changes are necessary. And because we are physicians, we're talking more in terms of what is going in the healthcare, especially what we see with our HIV patients, that they're so much neglected because of this. Either we call it racism or just the stigma. So I think that's a very important point you mentioned, and that's why I see you are also involved with the Congress, and they're making community measures and all that. And also, when you talk about the hesitation of the Black community not taking the vaccine, at the same time, you also recommend them to take it, and how to overcome the hesitation. Has some of been the features that I've seen that you are helping the community.
That's exactly right.
I cannot end this call without asking you. You are a fitness fanatic. And I have seen people going into a diet or a lifestyle for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month or so. You've been consistent. And I don't know if a lot of people would know around you run marathon. You don't just run it, you win it. So tell me how you got into this lifestyle.
Maybe not so much marathons, but certainly 10Ks and 5Ks and swimming. Well, I've not always been on this fitness kick. A lot of people that have known me over the years, especially when I was younger, I had a weight problem. And then I had children, and then I was, on and off, how it is with kids, gaining weight, losing weight. But I guess as I got older, and and it's interesting, I started later in life. I maintained my weight, but it wasn't really where I wanted it to be. And as I got older, let's say in my late 50s, I started looking around at my patients that I was taking care of. And I saw all this diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity and all these diseases that I thought, you can't run away from your genes, but you can do some things to affect change. And I never imagined that I could run. And I started running with this little geriatric group out in Pennsylvania. They
Uh-huh.
said, "Hey, Doc D, whatever they call me, would you like to start running?" And that's how I started running. And
Yeah.
I don't do so much now because I have some back situations, but I have 80 medals. Through the years in my age group, and my most the
Iron
one that
women.
I pride myself the most is I did the Marine Corps 10K for several years. That was in Washington D.C. And my last Marine Corps 10K that I did about 3 years ago, I won. I got the fourth place out of I don't know how many thousands of people in my age group. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. So that's another thing that that I tell people, you have to carve out time for your own health.
Mhm.
This pandemic has created a situation where many of us haven't had a chance to get to the gym like we want to, or go out and walk like we want to because of masks and stuff. And that's one thing that I'm hoping will change,
Mhm.
when we get vaccinated. I'm now going back to the gym a little bit, but only to swim. And that's when I can call and schedule a lane for myself while I'll be in a swimming lane by myself. But it's a conscious decision because I just
Mhm.
decided I didn't want diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity and all these things that we can affect we can do some things for ourselves.
Mhm. So whether it's be coming from fear or it be an inspiration, you have to be consistent and keep going.
You
Right.
do, because exercise, and I don't like to call it dieting, but lifestyle change can there are many times that you come in and you're working, and the first thing you want to do is to grab something that's not healthy,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to let yourself do that. And then you get right back up, and then the next day you're having this, that, and the other. So like I said, it's a lifestyle change. And just be aware of, when things get out of control, you just dial things back and, start up again and try not to stress about it.
And I can totally see you enjoying it. Is it right? Because I
Oh,
see,
yeah.
yeah, I see a lot
I
of other.
change up. I really enjoy doing it. I don't look at it as like, you know, this is a hassle. Oh, I got to go to the gym today. No, because I change up. When you start doing things the same thing, you're going to get bored with it and your body will get bored with it. That's why you have to change up. If you run one day, walk the next day or swim or something, because your body has, I always believe your body has this thermostat and your
Mhm.
body wants to get doesn't really want to work out.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of overcome that and look at it, keep your eye on the prize. My mom's 103
Yes. A proud one.
and very active and still very politically active. And that's many years from where I am now. And I would like to get to that age and have the mentality
Yeah.
that she has. And you can't do that by not being good to your body.
So, Dr. Banks, you shared so many thoughts about first how being a strong woman, then being a strong woman with her career, having so many hobbies, and that too doing with all the interest. And I can totally see that every time I meet you, it doesn't feel like that you are, stressed about something. You're always like smiling and happy. And I'm so thankful that you took out time in between your busy schedules, and I was trying to get time like when I will get my slot.
I'm honored. I mean, I am absolutely honored. This has been a treat for me. Like I said, I love being around young people. You guys inspire me, and you see with my thing about going back to college and
Mm.
interacting with the young residents and medical students, that keeps me inspired. That keeps me going. I learned something. You guys might learn something from me, but I learn a lot from you guys.
So just one question left for you. Are you going to take me for shopping next time? Because I can totally see you going into some high-end shopping and getting the fabulous clothes and shoes.
Before the pandemic, I do love fashion. That's another sort of mini passion of mine. I have a friend who's a designer in New York before, her business kind of stopped because of the pandemic. But
Mhm.
you'll always see me in great clothes, and I mean not great clothes, but colorful clothes
Mhm.
and always aware. That's why I'm glad I don't have to wear my scrubs anymore because that was killing me. Oh my God, for me to be in scrubs. Oh, so no, we'll definitely have to go shop.
But it's so lovely talking to you as always, Dr.
Thank
Banks. Thank
you.
you for
Thank
having.
you. You
Yeah.
are so welcome.